Sarah Martinez stepped through the glass doors of the prestigious Falcon Security Academy, her worn duffel bag slung over her shoulder, and determination burning in her eyes. At 24, she was older than most recruits, having worked 3 jobs to save enough money for the training program that would launch her career in executive protection. The academy was known for producing the world's elite bodyguards, but it was also notorious for its brutal training methods and instructors who took pleasure in breaking down recruits. The orientation hall buzzed with nervous energy as 43 hopefuls gathered for their first briefing. Sarah noticed immediately that she was one of only 6 women in the group, and several male recruits were already sizing each other up with competitive glances. She kept her head high, remembering her father's words before he passed away. "Mija, they'll try to make you small, but you were born to take up space." Chief Instructor Marcus Reynolds entered the room like a storm cloud, his military bearing and cold gray eyes immediately commanding silence. Behind him followed 4 other instructors, each one looking like they could bench press a small car. Reynolds scanned the group with obvious disdain, his gaze lingering on the female recruits with particular skepticism. "Welcome to hell," Reynolds announced, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Half of you will quit within the first week. 3/4 won't make it past month 1. And those lucky few who somehow stumble to graduation will discover that this industry chews up the weak and spits them out without mercy." Sarah felt the weight of stares as Reynolds continued his intimidating speech. She had researched the academy thoroughly and knew that Reynolds had trained Navy SEALs before transitioning to private security training. His reputation for harsh methods was legendary, but so was his success rate in producing top-tier protection specialists. When Reynolds called for initial fitness assessments, Sarah watched as recruits were divided into groups. She noticed Instructor Kane, a mountain of a man with arms covered in military tattoos, making notes as he observed each recruit. His eyes narrowed when they reached Sarah, and she caught him whispering something to another instructor that made them both chuckle. The physical tests began immediately. Push-ups, pull-ups, sprint intervals, and obstacle courses designed to weed out the unprepared. Sarah had spent months conditioning her body, running before dawn and training at a local gym after her evening shift at a security company. She completed each exercise with steady determination, never showing the exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm her. During the pull-up test, she heard Instructor Kane's voice boom across the training yard. "Martinez, is that all you've got? My grandmother could do better reps than that, and she's been dead for 10 years. The other recruit snickered, and Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she didn't respond. Instead, she completed 5 additional pull-ups beyond the required number. As the day progressed, the comments became more pointed and personal. When Sarah struggled with the heavy bag-lifting exercise, Instructor Williams muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Maybe we should order some lighter equipment for the ladies." During combat stance training, Reynolds himself stopped to correct her form, his adjustments unnecessarily rough and designed to throw her off balance. The breaking point came during the final exercise of the day. Recruits were required to carry a 150-pound dummy across a 100-yard obstacle course while being timed. Sarah was the last to go, and by then several male recruits had already failed the challenge. As she hoisted the dummy across her shoulders, she heard Kane yell, "Clock's ticking, Martinez. Your future clients won't wait for you to catch your breath." Every muscle in her body screamed as she navigated the obstacles, crawling under barriers, climbing over walls, and maintaining her grip on the dummy, while instructors shouted discouragement from the sidelines. Sweat stung her eyes, and her lungs burned, but she refused to drop her burden. When she finally crossed the finish line, her time was respectable, though not the best of the day. Instead of acknowledgement, Reynolds approached her with a clipboard and shook his head. "Mediocre at best, Martinez. In the real world, mediocre gets people killed. Maybe you should consider a nice desk job instead of pretending you can handle this line of work." That night in the dormitory, as other recruits compared notes and formed alliances, Sarah lay on her narrow bunk staring at the ceiling. Several recruits had already packed their bags, deciding the academy wasn't for them. She could hear whispered conversations about who would likely wash out next, and more than once, she heard her own name mentioned with betting odds. She pulled out her phone and looked at a photo of her father in his police uniform. He had died in the line of duty when she was 18, and his sacrifice had inspired her to pursue a career in protection services. She had promised his grave that she would become the kind of person who stood between danger and innocent people, no matter what obstacles stood in her way. The doubt crept in like shadows at twilight. Maybe the instructors were right. Maybe she wasn't cut out for this world of elite protection services. The physical demands were crushing, the mental pressure was constant, and the emotional toll of facing mockery and dismissal every day was wearing her down faster than she had anticipated. But as she lay there in the darkness, listening to the quiet breathing of her fellow recruits, Sarah made a decision that would define everything that followed. She wouldn't just survive this training, she would excel at it. She would prove every skeptical instructor wrong, not through anger or defiance, but through relentless improvement and unwavering dedication. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for the instructors to tear her down, and new chances for her to build herself back up stronger than before. Sarah Martinez closed her eyes and began planning how she would transform their mockery into motivation, their dismissal into determination. The real battle was just beginning. The second week at Falcon Security Academy brought specialized training modules that separated the serious candidates from those just testing the waters. Sarah woke each morning at 4:30, an hour before the required wake-up call, to squeeze in extra conditioning. While other recruits slept, she practiced martial arts forms in the empty training room, her movements precise and focused in the dim emergency lighting. Instructor Kane seemed to take personal offense at her dedication. During weapons training, he positioned himself directly behind her, criticizing every stance and grip while allowing male recruits to make similar mistakes without comment. When Sarah assembled her service weapon in record time, Kane accused her of prior military experience and demanded she disassemble and reassemble it blindfolded to prove she hadn't memorized one specific weapon configuration. The psychological warfare intensified during tactical scenario training. Recruits were thrust into simulated protection situations with actors playing hostile targets, panicked clients, and unpredictable crowds. Sarah's first scenario involved protecting a mock VIP at a crowded restaurant when gunmen burst through the entrance. She reacted instinctively, shielding her client and creating an evacuation route, but Instructor Williams halted the exercise midway. "Martinez, your client is dead," Williams announced flatly. "You hesitated for 2 full seconds before moving. In real life, that's an eternity. Your indecision just cost someone their life." The criticism stung because Sarah knew she hadn't hesitated. She had assessed the situation before acting, exactly as the manual instructed. But arguing with instructors was forbidden, so she absorbed the feedback in silence. During hand-to-hand combat training, the instructors paired Sarah exclusively with larger male recruits, claiming they needed to prepare her for realistic scenarios. When she successfully defended against an attack from Rodriguez, a former college wrestler, Kane immediately changed the rules to make the exercise more difficult. "In the field, attackers don't follow rules, Martinez. Let's see how you handle multiple threats." The breaking point came during Week 3's endurance challenge. Recruits were required to complete a 20-mile ruck march carrying full gear, navigating through wooded terrain in the dark. Sarah had prepared extensively for this challenge, knowing it would test every aspect of her physical conditioning. She maintained a steady pace throughout the march, even helping a struggling recruit adjust his pack weight distribution when instructors weren't watching. As dawn broke, Sarah found herself among the first group to reach the checkpoint. Her breathing controlled and her pace sustainable. She expected at least grudging acknowledgement of her performance, but Reynolds was waiting with a scowl and his ever-present clipboard. "Congratulations, Martinez," he said with false cheer. "You've proved you can walk in the woods without getting lost. Unfortunately, bodyguard work requires more than hiking abilities. Report to the training center for remedial firearms instruction, while the competent recruits get breakfast." The remedial training was clearly punishment disguised as education. For 2 hours, Sarah repeated basic shooting drills she had mastered weeks earlier while her empty stomach growled and her tired muscles protested. Kane supervised the session, offering commentary designed to undermine her confidence. "Your groupings are acceptable for a beginner," he noted as Sarah consistently hit center mass on targets at varying distances. "But acceptable isn't good enough when lives are on the line. Your reaction time is still too slow, your stance could use work, and frankly, I'm not convinced you have the killer instinct necessary for this profession. That afternoon during situational awareness training, Sarah noticed something that changed her entire perspective. While reviewing surveillance footage of their practice exercises, she observed the instructors' behavior patterns. They consistently applied different standards to different recruits, but not randomly. The harshest treatment was reserved for those they saw as having the most potential. Marcus, a former Marine who had become Sarah's closest friend among the recruits, had been receiving similar treatment after excelling in defensive driving courses. Elena, another female recruit with exceptional observation skills, was constantly criticized during intelligence gathering exercises. The pattern became clear. The instructors weren't trying to break everyone equally. They were identifying the strongest candidates and applying maximum pressure to test their resolve. This revelation transformed Sarah's understanding of her situation. The mockery and excessive criticism weren't signs that she was failing. They were indicators that she was succeeding beyond the instructor's expectations. They were pushing her harder because they sensed she could handle more pressure than most recruits. Armed with this knowledge, Sarah began responding differently to criticism. Instead of absorbing insults silently, she started asking specific questions about improvement. When Kane criticized her defensive positions during close protection scenarios, she requested additional drills to perfect her technique. When Williams questioned her decision-making speed, she asked for extra scenario training to sharpen her reflexes. The shift in approach caught the instructors off guard. They were accustomed to recruits either crumbling under pressure or responding with defiant anger. Sarah's calm persistence and genuine desire to improve despite harsh treatment disrupted their usual psychological tactics. During Week 4's final evaluation, a comprehensive test covering all training modules, Sarah performed with newfound confidence. She completed the obstacle course with the third best time in the group, scored in the top 5 on weapons proficiency, and demonstrated tactical thinking that impressed even the harshest critics. Reynolds announced the results with his characteristic stern expression, but Sarah caught something different in his eyes when he called her name. "Martinez, you've shown improvement in several areas. Your performance today suggests you might actually survive this program." Coming from Reynolds, this qualified as high praise. That evening, as recruits gathered in the common area to decompress, Sarah noticed a subtle change in group dynamics. Fellow recruits who had previously kept their distance began including her in conversations and seeking her advice on training challenges. She realized that her persistence under extreme pressure had earned respect from both peers and instructors, even if the latter were reluctant to show it openly. Kane approached her during evening equipment maintenance, his expression unreadable. "Martinez, you've got grit, I'll give you that. But grit alone won't cut it in advanced training phases. The real tests are just beginning." His tone held a warning, but also a hint of professional acknowledgement that hadn't been there before. Sarah smiled as she cleaned her equipment, understanding now that every challenge was an opportunity to prove herself worthy of the elite ranks she aspired to join. The instructor's initial mockery had evolved into rigorous testing, and she was passing each examination with growing confidence. Tomorrow would bring new obstacles, but she was no longer the uncertain recruit who had walked through the academy doors. She was becoming the protector she had always dreamed of being. Month 2 at Falcon Security Academy introduced advanced tactical training that separated competent recruits from potential elite operators. Sarah found herself among 18 remaining candidates, down from the original 43. The dropouts had left for various reasons. Some couldn't handle the physical demands, others cracked under psychological pressure, and a few simply realized the profession wasn't their calling. Instructor Williams took charge of advanced firearms training, introducing scenarios that required split-second decisions under extreme stress. Recruits faced simulations involving innocent bystanders, multiple threats, and ambiguous situations where the wrong choice could mean disaster. Sarah had developed a reputation for steady nerves and accurate shooting, which only intensified Williams's efforts to find her breaking point. During a particularly challenging exercise, recruits entered a mock office building filled with actors playing various roles, some innocent workers, others potential threats. The objective was to neutralize hostile targets while protecting civilians and a high-value client. Sarah moved through the scenario methodically, clearing rooms and assessing threats with growing confidence. Halfway through the exercise, Williams appeared unexpectedly in her path, wearing civilian clothes and acting agitated. "Please help me," he shouted, reaching toward his jacket pocket. Sarah had milliseconds to decide whether he was an innocent victim seeking help or a threat reaching for a weapon. She chose to control the situation without using force, quickly restraining his hands while calling for him to identify himself. "Wrong answer, Martinez," Williams snapped. "I was reaching for my identification. You just assaulted an undercover federal agent. Your client is now facing a lawsuit, and your company's reputation is destroyed." The criticism was harsh, but Sarah noticed he didn't end the exercise or declare it a failure. Instead, he added complexity. "Now deal with the consequences while continuing your protection duties." This pattern of escalating challenges became Williams' signature approach with Sarah. Every success was met with additional complications. Every solution created new problems to solve. Other recruits began to notice that Sarah faced consistently more difficult scenarios than anyone else, and some questioned whether the treatment was fair. Elena, one of the few remaining female recruits, approached Sarah during lunch break with obvious concern. "They're not giving you the same tests as everyone else," she observed. "Rodriguez got a simple crowd control scenario while you're dealing with multiple active shooters and hostage situations. It's like they want you to fail." Sarah had come to a different conclusion. "They're not trying to make me fail," she replied thoughtfully. "They're preparing me for situations the others aren't ready to handle yet. Williams knows I can handle the pressure, so he's pushing me to the next level." This perspective was tested during defensive driving training, where instructor Kane took personal charge of Sarah's education. The course involved high-speed evasion techniques, precision maneuvering under fire, and protecting passengers during simulated attacks. Kane positioned himself in the passenger seat, shouting instructions and criticism, while Sarah navigated increasingly dangerous scenarios. "You're overthinking every turn, Martinez," Kane barked as Sarah executed a perfect J-turn to escape a mock ambush. "Real threats don't wait for you to calculate angles and velocities. React with instinct, not textbook knowledge." His criticism seemed contradictory since Sarah's techniques were flawless, but she was beginning to understand that the instructors were testing mental resilience as much as physical skills. The revelation came during a particularly intense scenario where Kane suddenly grabbed the steering wheel, trying to throw Sarah off course while she performed evasive maneuvers. Instead of fighting him for control, Sarah adapted instantly, using his interference as additional challenge rather than obstacle. She completed the course successfully despite his attempts at sabotage. Kane sat in silence for several moments after the exercise ended, studying Sarah with new interest. "You just did something I've never seen before," he admitted grudgingly. "Instead of fighting unexpected interference, you incorporated it into your strategy. That's not standard training response, that's advanced tactical thinking." Word of Sarah's adaptability spread among the instructional staff, and she noticed subtle changes in their approach. The mockery became less personal and more professional. Criticism focused on specific improvements rather than general inadequacy. Reynolds began including her in advanced demonstration scenarios, using her performance as examples for other recruits. During Week 6's comprehensive evaluation, Sarah faced her most challenging test yet. She was assigned to protect a simulated corporate executive during a hostile takeover scenario that included angry protesters, media harassment, legal complications, and multiple security threats. The exercise was designed to last 8 hours and test every skill learned during training. Sarah approached the scenario with calm professionalism, establishing security protocols and coordinating with mock law enforcement. When protesters blocked the client's vehicle route, she quickly identified alternative paths. When paparazzi became aggressive, she created protective barriers without escalating violence. When suspicious individuals appeared near the client's location, she investigated thoroughly while maintaining protective positioning. The complexity escalated throughout the day. Multiple crisis situations developed simultaneously: a bomb threat at the client's hotel, suspicious packages at the corporate headquarters, and intelligence reports of planned attacks during the evening gala. Sarah managed each situation systematically, prioritizing threats and coordinating responses with methodical efficiency. Reynolds observed the entire exercise, making notes and occasionally adding unexpected complications. Near the end of the scenario, he introduced the ultimate test. Intelligence reports suggested the client's own security team included a potential insider threat. Sarah had to continue protection duties while quietly investigating her supposed allies. Her handling of this delicate situation impressed even the most skeptical instructors. She discreetly verified each team member's credentials and behavioral patterns without alerting the potential threat or compromising protective coverage. When she identified the mock traitor through careful observation and logical deduction, Reynolds called an end to the exercise. "Outstanding work, Martinez," Reynolds announced, his tone carrying genuine respect for the first time since training began. "You've demonstrated tactical thinking, adaptability under pressure, and leadership qualities that exceed program standards. Your performance today represents the kind of professionalism our clients expect from Falcon Academy graduates." That evening, Kane approached Sarah during equipment maintenance with an expression she had never seen before: professional respect, mixed with something approaching admiration. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "When you first arrived, I thought you were just another idealistic candidate who would wash out within weeks. I pushed you harder than anyone else because I wanted to accelerate that inevitable failure." He paused, organizing his thoughts carefully. "What I discovered is that you don't break under pressure. You adapt and improve. Every challenge made you stronger instead of weaker. That's the mark of a true professional, and it's rare in any candidate regardless of background or experience." Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction as she realized how dramatically her situation had changed. The instructors who had once mocked her capabilities now sought her out for advanced training opportunities. Fellow recruits looked to her for leadership during complex exercises. She had transformed from target of ridicule into model student through sheer determination and unwavering professionalism. The Academy's brutal training regimen had revealed her true potential, and even the harshest critics could no longer deny her capabilities. Sarah Martinez was no longer fighting to prove she belonged at Falcon Academy. She was preparing to graduate among its elite ranks. The third month at Falcon Security Academy introduced psychological operations training, where recruits learned to read people, detect deception, and manage complex interpersonal dynamics while maintaining protective duties. Sarah discovered that her natural empathy and observation skills, once dismissed by instructors as weaknesses, were actually powerful tools in the protection industry. Dr. Rebecca Stone, the Academy's behavioral psychology specialist, led this phase of training. Unlike the military-style instructors, she possessed a quiet intensity that commanded respect through intellectual authority rather than physical presence. Sarah found herself genuinely excited about these sessions, which focused on understanding human behavior patterns, threat assessment through body language analysis, and de-escalation techniques. During the first psychology module, Dr. Stone presented complex scenarios involving potentially unstable individuals near protected clients. Recruits were required to assess threat levels based on verbal cues, physical positioning, and behavioral anomalies. Sarah excelled immediately, consistently identifying genuine threats while avoiding false positives that could create unnecessary confrontations. Instructor Kane, observing from the back of the classroom, initially dismissed Sarah's success as lucky guessing. "Anyone can spot obvious problems," he muttered during a break. "Let's see how she handles subtle manipulation and professional deceivers." His skepticism led Dr. Stone to design increasingly sophisticated tests specifically targeting Sarah's analytical abilities. The advanced scenarios introduced professional criminals, trained intelligence operatives, and skilled con artists as role-playing subjects. Sarah faced situations involving seemingly innocent individuals with hidden agendas, friendly contacts who gradually revealed hostile intentions, and complex social dynamics where multiple people played interconnected deceptive roles. During one particularly challenging exercise, Sarah was assigned to protect a mock technology executive attending an industry conference filled with competitors, foreign agents, and corporate spies. Every conversation contained potential intelligence gathering attempts. Each business card exchange might facilitate future surveillance, and seemingly casual questions could reveal proprietary information. Sarah navigated this environment with remarkable intuition, identifying suspicious individuals through subtle behavioral inconsistencies and protecting her client from information compromise without appearing paranoid or antisocial. She noticed when a journalist asked questions outside his supposed area of expertise, when a potential partner showed excessive interest in security protocols, and when an industry colleague displayed knowledge that didn't match his claimed background. Dr. Stone watched Sarah's performance with growing interest, taking detailed notes on her observational techniques and decision-making processes. After the exercise, she approached Sarah privately with an unusual request. "Martinez, I want to try something different with your training," Dr. Stone explained. "Your natural ability to read people exceeds what I typically see in candidates with years of field experience. I'd like to put you in scenarios designed for advanced operatives to see how your skills translate to higher levels of complexity." The special training sessions took place after regular hours, with Dr. Stone personally designing scenarios that challenged Sarah's psychological assessment abilities. These exercises involved professional actors trained in espionage techniques, con artists recruited from law enforcement training programs, and even former intelligence agents testing their deception skills against Sarah's detection abilities. Sarah thrived in this environment, developing an almost supernatural ability to detect deception and assess genuine threat levels. She learned to trust her instincts while backing them up with logical analysis, creating a comprehensive threat assessment methodology that impressed even experienced professionals. Word of Sarah's exceptional psychological skills reached Chief Instructor Reynolds, who initially responded with characteristic skepticism. "Reading people is useful," he acknowledged, "but it doesn't replace combat skills and tactical training. Let's see how well her psychology theories work under real pressure." Reynolds designed a comprehensive test that combined physical protection duties with complex psychological challenges. Sarah was assigned to protect a mock corporate whistleblower whose testimony could expose criminal activities by powerful individuals. The scenario included death threats, attempted bribery, psychological manipulation, and sophisticated surveillance by multiple hostile groups. The exercise began at a safe house where Sarah met her client, an actor playing a nervous accountant with evidence of massive financial fraud. Immediately, Sarah sensed something wrong with the situation. The client's body language suggested deception rather than fear. His story contained inconsistencies, and his knowledge of accounting procedures seemed superficial. While maintaining professional protective protocols, Sarah quietly investigated her suspicions. She discovered that the whistleblower was actually an elaborate test, with the real scenario involving protecting a genuine accountant who was hidden elsewhere in the facility. The fake client was designed to distract her from her true duties while hostile actors attempted to reach the real target. Sarah's ability to detect the deception while continuing protective duties demonstrated a level of sophisticated thinking that amazed the observing instructors. She had simultaneously managed false flag operations, genuine protection requirements, and complex threat assessments without compromising any aspect of her responsibilities. Reynolds called an immediate halt to the exercise, gathering all instructors for an impromptu evaluation session. Sarah could see animated discussions taking place among the staff, with frequent glances in her direction. Finally, Reynolds approached her with an expression she had never seen before: genuine professional admiration. "Martinez, what you just accomplished represents graduate-level operational thinking," he announced. "You identified a sophisticated deception designed to fool experienced agents, maintained protective protocols for both real and fake scenarios, and detected actual threats that other candidates completely missed. This performance exceeds program standards significantly." The recognition marked a turning point in Sarah's academy experience. Instructors who had previously criticized her every move now sought her opinions during tactical discussions. Fellow recruits, recognizing her expertise, approached her for advice on psychological assessment techniques. She had evolved from struggling candidate to informal leader among the remaining 14 recruits. Kane approached her after evening training with an unusual proposition. "Martinez, I want to make you a deal," he said, his tone more respectful than she had ever heard. "I've been wrong about your capabilities from day one, and I want to make amends. I'm willing to provide additional advanced training in areas where you want to improve. No strings attached." This offer represented complete transformation in their relationship. Kane, who had once dismissed her as unsuitable for protection work, now recognized her potential and wanted to contribute to her development. Sarah accepted graciously, understanding that this gesture represented acknowledgement of her worth from someone whose opinion carried significant weight in the industry. The psychological training phase concluded with Sarah ranking first in threat assessment, second in crisis management, and first overall in complex scenario navigation. Dr. Stone pulled her aside for final evaluation feedback, sharing insights that would shape Sarah's entire career. You possess intuitive understanding of human behavior that typically requires years of field experience to develop, Dr. Stone explained. Combined with your tactical skills and physical capabilities, you're developing into exactly the kind of protection specialist that high-profile clients seek. The industry needs people who can think several steps ahead while maintaining immediate situational awareness. As month 3 ended, Sarah realized she had not just survived the Academy's brutal training regimen. She had excelled beyond all expectations, including her own. The mockery and dismissal that had characterized her early weeks had transformed into professional respect and recognition of exceptional ability. She was no longer proving she belonged at Falcon Academy. She was demonstrating why she would become one of its most successful graduates. The final month of training at Falcon Security Academy transformed into something Sarah had never expected, a collaborative effort between instructors and elite candidates to prepare the strongest recruits for real-world challenges. Only 12 candidates remained from the original 43, and the atmosphere had shifted from weeding out failures to polishing diamonds. Chief Instructor Reynolds announced the capstone training phase during the Monday morning briefing. Ladies and gentlemen, you've survived the basic program. Now we prepare you for situations that will define your careers and possibly save lives. The final evaluations will test everything you've learned under conditions that mirror actual fieldwork. Sarah found herself selected for the Academy's most challenging track, executive protection for high-threat clients. This specialization required managing multiple security layers, coordinating with law enforcement agencies, and handling situations where failure meant catastrophic consequences. Only 3 candidates were chosen for this elite training path. Instructor Williams, who had once questioned Sarah's ability to handle basic scenarios, now served as her primary mentor for advanced tactical operations. The transformation in their relationship reflected how dramatically perspectives had changed over the months of intensive training. Martinez, you've earned the right to learn our most advanced techniques, Williams explained during their first specialized session. Executive protection isn't just about stopping bullets. It's about preventing situations where bullets become necessary. Your psychological assessment skills make you ideal for this specialization. The advanced training introduced Sarah to real-world complexity that textbooks couldn't capture. She learned to coordinate with FBI protective details, manage international travel security, and handle clients whose personal behavior created additional risks. Each scenario built upon the last, creating an interconnected web of challenges that tested her ability to think strategically while reacting tactically. During a simulated international protection assignment, Sarah was tasked with safeguarding a mock diplomat during peace negotiations in a hostile environment. The exercise involved actual former State Department security personnel, retired Secret Service agents, and international law enforcement consultants who brought authentic expertise to the training scenarios. Sarah's performance during this exercise demonstrated how completely she had internalized the Academy's lessons. She identified security vulnerabilities in the diplomatic facility, established backup evacuation routes, and coordinated with multiple agencies while maintaining focus on her primary protection responsibilities. When the scenario introduced an attempted assassination during treaty signing ceremonies, her response was immediate and comprehensive. The mock attack involved multiple shooters, improvised explosive devices, and coordinated diversions designed to overwhelm security systems. Sarah's reaction combined split-second tactical decisions with strategic thinking, as she simultaneously protected her client, coordinated emergency response, and gathered intelligence about the attack's structure. Reynolds observed the entire exercise from a command center filled with monitoring equipment and evaluation personnel. As Sarah successfully evacuated her client through a route she had prepared hours earlier, he turned to the assembled instructors with obvious satisfaction. That performance represents the finest example of executive protection training I've witnessed in 15 years, Reynolds announced. Martinez demonstrated tactical excellence, strategic planning, crisis management, and leadership qualities that exceed professional standards. She's ready for the most challenging assignments in our industry. The recognition was gratifying, but Sarah's satisfaction came from knowing she had mastered skills that could genuinely save lives. The Academy's brutal training regimen had forged her into exactly the kind of protector she had dreamed of becoming when she first walked through those glass doors months earlier. Kane approached her after the exercise with news that would reshape her entire future. "Martinez, I've received 3 job offers for you from clients who specifically requested Academy graduates with your skill set," he announced. A Fortune 500 CEO who travels internationally, a federal judge receiving death threats, and a technology entrepreneur whose innovations have attracted hostile foreign interest. Each opportunity represented the pinnacle of executive protection work, high-stakes assignments where competence meant the difference between life and death. Sarah realized that the instructor's harsh treatment had been preparation for exactly these kinds of responsibilities. Dr. Stone joined the conversation with additional perspective on Sarah's career prospects. "Your psychological assessment abilities combined with tactical skills make you uniquely qualified for clients facing sophisticated threats," she explained. "Government agencies and private security firms are specifically seeking protection specialists with your particular combination of talents." The final week of Academy training focused on real-world preparation rather than additional testing. Sarah participated in advanced briefings with industry professionals, learned about client management and business operations, and received specialized equipment training for high-end protection assignments. During these sessions, she noticed how completely the instructor-student dynamic had evolved. Williams sought her opinions on tactical scenarios. Kane discussed industry trends with her as a colleague, and Reynolds included her in strategic planning discussions typically reserved for staff members. The transformation culminated during the graduation ceremony preparation meeting, where Reynolds made an announcement that stunned everyone present. "This year's Outstanding Graduate Award goes to someone who exemplifies the Academy's highest standards and demonstrates exceptional potential for industry leadership. Sarah Martinez will receive the Reynolds Medal for Excellence in Executive Protection." The award was unprecedented for someone who had faced such initial skepticism from instructors. Sarah realized that her journey from mockery to recognition represented more than personal achievement. It demonstrated how determination and professionalism could overcome any obstacle, including the prejudices of people whose respect was worth earning. Elena, who had become Sarah's closest friend among the remaining candidates, approached her with obvious admiration. "You've accomplished something incredible here," she said. "Not just graduating or even excelling, but completely changing how the instructors view women in this profession. You've opened doors for everyone who comes after you." As the final training exercises concluded, Sarah reflected on the complete transformation of her Academy experience. The instructors who had once questioned her suitability for protection work now competed to provide her with career opportunities. The brutal criticism that had nearly broken her spirit had forged unshakable confidence and professional competence. Kane pulled her aside for one final conversation before graduation ceremonies. "Martinez, I want you to know that training you has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career," he admitted. "You forced me to examine my own biases and raise my standards for what constitutes exceptional performance. You've made me a better instructor." Sarah understood that her success represented more than individual achievement. She had proven that determination, adaptability, and unwavering professionalism could overcome any obstacle, including the skepticism of experts whose opinions shaped industry standards. The mockery that had nearly defeated her had instead forged her into exactly the kind of protection specialist the world needed most. Tomorrow's graduation would mark not just the end of training, but the beginning of a career that would redefine excellence in executive protection services. Sarah Martinez had transformed from uncertain candidate to industry leader, earning respect through performance that exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own. Graduation day at Falcon Security Academy arrived with crisp autumn weather and an atmosphere of anticipation that had built throughout the final week of training. Sarah stood before her mirror in the dormitory, adjusting the formal uniform that marked her transition from candidate to certified protection specialist. The reflection showed someone completely transformed from the uncertain recruit who had arrived months earlier. The ceremony took place in the Academy's main auditorium, filled with family members, industry professionals, and potential employers who came to recruit the finest graduates. Sarah's heart swelled as she spotted familiar faces in the audience. Her mother, who had flown in from California, her brother in his Army dress uniform, and several former colleagues from her previous security job who had supported her dream of elite training. Chief Instructor Reynolds took the podium to address the 12 graduating candidates, his usually stern expression softened by obvious pride in the exceptional class he had helped shape. Ladies and gentlemen, you represent the finest group of protection specialists this academy has ever produced. Each of you has demonstrated capabilities that exceed industry standards and commitment that honors our profession. Sarah listened as Reynolds detailed the rigorous selection process that had brought them to this moment. Of the original 43 candidates, only these 12 had possessed the combination of physical capability, mental resilience, and moral character required for elite protection work. The statistics were sobering, but also validating for those who had persevered through the Academy's unforgiving curriculum. When Reynolds began announcing individual achievements, Sarah felt her heart racing. Each graduate received recognition for specific excellencies: Marcus for tactical leadership, Elena for intelligence analysis, Rodriguez for defensive driving expertise. The announcements built toward the ceremony's climactic moment, and Sarah knew her name would be called for the Academy's highest honor. This year's recipient of the Reynolds Medal for Excellence in Executive Protection overcame initial skepticism through extraordinary determination and exceptional performance, Reynolds announced, his voice carrying across the silent auditorium. Sarah Martinez transformed doubt into conviction, criticism into motivation, and challenges into opportunities for growth that inspired everyone around her. The applause was thunderous as Sarah walked to the podium, accepting the medal from the man who had once questioned her suitability for protection work. Reynolds's handshake lingered, and he whispered words meant only for her. You've redefined what I consider possible in this profession. Congratulations, Agent Martinez. The formal title carried weight beyond mere ceremony. Sarah was no longer a candidate or trainee. She was a certified protection specialist qualified for the industry's most demanding assignments. The months of brutal training, harsh criticism, and relentless pressure had forged her into exactly what she had dreamed of becoming. Following the ceremony, the reception provided opportunities for graduates to meet potential employers and industry veterans. Sarah found herself surrounded by representatives from major security firms, government agencies, and private clients seeking her specific combination of skills. James Morrison, director of Morrison International Security, approached her with an offer that would have seemed impossible months earlier. Ms. Martinez, we've followed your training progress closely, and we'd like to offer you a position on our executive protection team. The starting assignment involves protecting a Supreme Court justice who has received credible death threats. The opportunity represented everything Sarah had worked toward: high-level protection work with real-world significance and the chance to make a genuine difference in someone's safety. Before she could respond, Morrison continued with details that exceeded her expectations. The position includes advanced training in federal protective protocols, liaison work with FBI and Secret Service details, and eventual leadership opportunities within our organization. Your academy performance suggests you're destined for supervisory roles in this industry. Other offers followed throughout the evening. International corporations seeking protection specialists for overseas executives, entertainment industry clients requiring discrete security services, and technology companies needing cybersecurity-aware protection specialists. Each opportunity reflected recognition of Sarah's exceptional capabilities and industry potential. Instructor Kane approached during a quiet moment, carrying 2 glasses of champagne and wearing an expression of genuine admiration. Martinez, I owe you more than an apology, he began. I owe you thanks for teaching me something important about recognizing potential in unexpected packages. He raised his glass in a toast that summarized the complete transformation of their relationship. To the finest protection specialist I've had the privilege to train, and to the lesson that excellence comes in many forms. You've made me a better instructor and a better judge of character. Dr. Stone joined their conversation with insights that placed Sarah's achievement in broader context. Your success here represents more than individual accomplishment, she explained. You've demonstrated that psychological insight, emotional intelligence, and adaptive thinking are just as valuable as traditional tactical skills and modern protection work. As the evening progressed, Sarah realized that her academy experience had created ripple effects extending far beyond her personal success. Elena mentioned that female applicants for next year's program had increased significantly after word spread about Sarah's achievements. Marcus noted that instructors were incorporating psychological assessment techniques into standard curriculum after seeing their effectiveness in Sarah's training. Williams approached her near the end of the reception with news that would influence her entire career trajectory. Martinez, the Academy Board has approved creation of a new advanced training program focused on psychological threat assessment and crisis management. We'd like you to return in 2 years as a guest instructor to help develop and teach these modules. The invitation represented ultimate validation, transformation from student to teacher, from someone learning the profession to someone shaping its future direction. Sarah accepted enthusiastically, understanding that this opportunity would allow her to influence the next generation of protection specialists while continuing her own professional development. Near midnight, as the reception concluded and graduates prepared to embark on their careers, Sarah stood alone in the Academy's training yard where her journey had begun. The obstacle courses and training equipment looked different now. No longer intimidating barriers, but familiar tools that had shaped her into the professional she had become. Reynolds joined her in the quiet space, both of them reflecting on the transformation that had occurred over the months of intensive training. You know, Martinez, when you first arrived, I saw someone with potential but questioned whether you had the toughness for this profession. What I failed to recognize was that toughness comes in many forms. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Your toughness wasn't the obvious kind that flexes muscles and shouts defiance. It was the quiet strength that absorbs criticism, learns from setbacks, and emerges stronger from every challenge. That's the rarest and most valuable kind of resilience in this business. Sarah smiled, remembering the uncertain young woman who had walked through the academy doors months earlier. The mockery and harsh treatment that had nearly broken her spirit had instead forged unshakable confidence and professional competence. Every criticism had become motivation, every obstacle had become an opportunity for growth, and every doubt had been transformed into determination. Tomorrow would bring the start of her professional career, beginning with the Supreme Court Justice assignment that represented the pinnacle of protection work. She would face new challenges, encounter different forms of pressure, and continue learning throughout her career, but she would face them with skills, confidence, and recognition earned through the most demanding training program in the industry. Sarah Martinez had not just graduated from Falcon Security Academy, she had redefined what graduation meant, setting new standards for excellence that would influence the profession for years to come. 2 years after graduation, Sarah Martinez returned to Falcon Security Academy as Senior Instructor for Advanced Psychological Assessment, a position created specifically to incorporate her expertise into the Academy's curriculum. The young woman who had once faced mockery and dismissal now walked through those same glass doors as an industry leader whose methods were being adopted by protection services worldwide. Her career since graduation had exceeded every expectation. The Supreme Court Justice assignment had lasted 18 months, during which Sarah successfully neutralized 3 serious threats while maintaining the justice's ability to function normally in public. Her innovative approach to threat assessment had caught the attention of federal agencies, leading to consulting contracts that established her reputation as a specialist in high-profile protection. The Academy's main conference room was filled with current instructors, industry experts, and government representatives who had gathered to observe Sarah's first advanced training session. Chief Instructor Reynolds, now in his final year before retirement, had specifically requested this demonstration to showcase how the Academy continued evolving its methods. Sarah faced 24 current candidates, including 8 women, a significant increase from the single female recruit classes that had been typical before her graduation. The composition reflected broader changes in the industry, as security firms increasingly recognized that diverse teams provided operational advantages in complex protection scenarios. Effective threat assessment begins with understanding that danger rarely announces itself obviously, Sarah began, her voice carrying the confidence that had been forged through months of brutal training and 2 years of real-world experience. The most sophisticated threats appear normal, friendly, and completely innocuous until the moment they strike. She introduced techniques she had developed during actual assignments, methods that combined traditional security protocols with psychological insights, gained through practical experience. The candidates listened with obvious respect, understanding that they were learning from someone whose expertise had been proven under real-world conditions. During the first practical exercise, Sarah observed the candidate's performance with eyes trained to recognize potential that others might miss. She spotted several recruits who reminded her of her younger self, determined individuals facing skepticism from peers or instructors, working harder than anyone else to prove their worthiness for elite protection work. Among them was Jennifer Chen, a former military police officer whose quiet competence was being overshadowed by more vocal candidates. Sarah recognized the same pattern she had experienced, exceptional ability being dismissed because it didn't fit traditional expectations for protection specialists. Chen, excellent observation about the subject's behavioral inconsistencies, Sarah announced during threat assessment training. Your analysis identified deception indicators that other candidates missed entirely. That level of psychological insight is exactly what distinguished protection work requires. The public recognition had immediate impact. Other candidates began paying attention to Chen's insights, and instructors started evaluating her performance with more careful consideration. Sarah was deliberately using her position to ensure that worthy candidates received appropriate recognition, regardless of their background or presentation style. Instructor Kane, now Deputy Director of Training, approached Sarah during the lunch break with obvious admiration for her teaching methods. "Martinez, you're accomplishing something I thought was impossible," he admitted. "You're maintaining our rigorous standards while creating an environment where every candidate can demonstrate their best capabilities." This balance represented Sarah's greatest contribution to the Academy's evolution. She had maintained the demanding training that produced elite protection specialists, while eliminating the arbitrary harassment that had once been mistaken for necessary toughening. Her approach focused criticism on specific performance issues rather than personal characteristics, creating more effective learning environments. The afternoon session involved advanced scenario training where candidates faced sophisticated threats requiring both tactical response and psychological manipulation resistance. Sarah had designed these exercises based on actual situations she had encountered during her professional assignments, bringing authentic complexity to academy training. During one particularly challenging scenario, candidate Marcus Thompson, a former college football player whose size and strength had initially impressed instructors, struggled with a situation requiring subtle social navigation rather than physical intervention. Sarah watched as other instructors prepared to criticize his performance harshly. "Thompson, you're approaching this scenario with the wrong tool set," Sarah intervened, her tone firm but constructive. "Physical capability isn't the solution here. Step back, observe the social dynamics, and identify the real power structure in this room. Then position yourself to influence the decision-maker, rather than intimidating the obvious threat." Her guidance helped Thompson recognize that effective protection often required understanding human relationships rather than simply overwhelming opponents with force. This insight would prove valuable throughout his career, but the learning moment also demonstrated Sarah's teaching philosophy to observing instructors. Reynolds pulled Sarah aside during the final break, his expression reflecting the pride of a mentor whose student had exceeded all expectations. "You've transformed how we think about training elite protection specialists," he said. "Your methods are producing candidates who can think strategically while maintaining tactical readiness. That combination is exactly what modern protection work demands." The validation was gratifying, but Sarah's satisfaction came from knowing that future candidates would benefit from improved training methods. She had used her position to eliminate the arbitrary cruelty that had nearly driven her from the program while maintaining the high standards that made Falcon Academy graduates the industry's most sought-after professionals. As the day concluded, Sarah addressed the candidates with advice that summarized everything she had learned about success in protection work. "Excellence in this profession comes from adaptability. continuous learning, and unwavering professionalism under pressure. The mockery you might face, the criticism you'll certainly encounter, and the obstacles that seem insurmountable. These are not punishments. They are opportunities to prove your commitment and develop capabilities that will define your entire career. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each candidate to emphasize her final point. Some of you will face additional challenges because you don't fit traditional expectations for protection specialists. Use those challenges as motivation to exceed every standard, prove every skeptic wrong, and redefine what excellence looks like in this profession. Jennifer Chen approached after the session with obvious gratitude for the recognition and guidance she had received. "Ms. Martinez, thank you for seeing potential that I wasn't sure existed," she said. "Your success gives me confidence that I can overcome whatever obstacles I encounter here." Sarah smiled, remembering her own uncertainty during those difficult early weeks of training. "Chen, you have everything necessary for success in this profession. Trust your instincts, work harder than anyone else, and never let criticism make you doubt your capabilities. The industry needs protection specialists with your particular combination of skills." As evening approached, Sarah walked through the Academy's training facilities one final time before returning to her hotel. The obstacle courses and equipment looked exactly as they had during her own training, but their meaning had completely transformed. They were no longer intimidating barriers, but familiar tools that had shaped her into the professional she had become. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her current client, a technology entrepreneur whose revolutionary innovations had attracted threats from multiple sources. "Sarah, your threat assessment proved accurate again. The industrial espionage attempt you predicted was intercepted exactly as you described. You've saved our company and possibly my life. Thank you for being extraordinary at what you do." Sarah Martinez had transformed mockery into motivation, obstacles into opportunities, and skepticism into respect through unwavering determination and exceptional performance. She had not just overcome the instructors who had once dismissed her capabilities. She had earned their admiration and changed their profession for the better. The young woman who had once struggled to prove she belonged in elite protection training had become the standard by which future excellence would be measured.